Welcome back. We now turn our attention to, I think, a very, very important shift unfolding in the Sahel region. It's part of our hashtag Africa Focus feature here on Salam Media. It's part of the show where we focus on the key stories that are making the rounds on the African continent. We check the big stories that are shaping the future of our home, Africa, and all of its vastness. And this time around, we'll be heading over to West Africa, the Sahel region to be specific, where three countries at the heart of the Sahel, Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger. I'm sure in the past few years you've been reading a lot about those three. They've announced a coordinated plan to withdraw from the International Criminal Court and to create their own regional judicial body. It's said to be called the Sahelian Criminal Court for Human Rights. The decision has been finalized at a ministerial summit in Niamey last week and marks a direct challenge to what these states describe as the ICC's bias and neo-colonial agenda. Leaders argue that the Hague-based court has disproportionately targeted African nations while ignoring violations that have been committed by some of the powerful states. And it's very, very hard to disagree with that. And yeah, if the withdrawal goes ahead, it will take a year to become effective under ICC regulations. But even so, cases already under investigation, including war crimes, including crimes committed during conflicts in Mali, will remain legally binding. The new Sahelian court is set to focus on international crimes, terrorism, and organized crime issues that have plagued the region for years. And yeah, it's an interesting development for the Confederation of Sahel States. And I think at this point, we can all agree this is more than just a legal maneuvering of some sort. It is a strong statement of sovereignty and a move that could reclaim judicial independence and a bid to create African solutions for African problems, something that we've been echoing for so long. But what does this mean for accountability? What does it mean for human rights? And what does it mean for Africa's place in the global justice system? And I think it's a great move because, well, we can all agree the failures of the ICC have been evident for everyone to see, especially recently with, well, one Benjamin Netanyahu, who's has transgressions, that are of proportions that we've never seen before in recent human history. And yeah, we're going to be heading over to Freetown out in Sierra Leone, and we'll be having a really interesting conversation with Alimamy Bakarr Sankoh, who's going to be giving us a bit more insight on this. He's the president of the governing council of the Hugo Chavez International Foundation for Peace, Friendship, and Solidarity, and is joining us, as I mentioned, from Freetown. Freetown is the capital of Sierra Leone, and I hope that he can hear me. Alimamy, good morning. Can you hear me? Are you ready to be chatting to us about this very, very important development?
Yes, indeed. Good morning, my brother. I'm ready to chat with you.
No, most definitely. Most definitely. Thank you so much for chatting to us and for giving us your time this morning. I think we'll jump right into it. We can start with the basics. How significant, in your opinion, is this move? Is this decision by Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger to withdraw from the ICC from an African perspective, and how the ICC as a body, as an organization, has been interacting with African countries and African leaders since its inception?
Yeah, thank you very much. It's a very good question. And of course, I want to start by saying that any country or government that cannot seek justice for its people should not be ascribed as a government. And that is exactly what is happening in the Sahel today. The leaders of the Sahel have made it very clear 2 years ago that they are fighting for sovereignty. And what is sovereignty? We have what we call political independence, but we don't have political sovereignty and we don't have economic sovereignty. And these things, when they are absent, there will be no justice for the people. So now they are seeking justice for the people of the Sahel, for the people of Africa, that the ICC does not represent the interests of the African people, that the ICC does not represent the human rights situation in Africa, does not speak about the human rights situation in Africa. But the same ICC too is suppressing the African leaders, African activists, to succumb to what the masters have planned or put in place for Africa to consume. And Africa is not a dumping ground. So with the Sahel is seeking justice for the people of Sahel and the people of Africa. And as a founder and president of the Sahel Solidarity Campaign Network, I want to make it very clear that the three wise men, that is the God-sent leaders of the Sahel region, that is President Assimi Goïta of Mali, President Ibrahim Traoré of Burkina Faso, and President Abdourahmane Tiani of the Republic of Niger, are really on the path of serving the people of Africa. And they are doing that, exactly, that's the mission. They made it very clear that sovereignty is a priority. You cannot talk of sovereignty without justice. You cannot talk of sovereignty without peace. You cannot talk of sovereignty without economic freedom. This is what exactly they stand for. And Africans are behind them today, and they are rallying their support behind these decisions because they represent the voice of the voiceless African people.
Mm, how do you now respond to critics that might argue that creating a regional court could to some extent shield leaders from accountability, leaders from the Sahel region themselves? How do you respond to those concerns?
That is the opinion of others, that, for every good thing, there is always a counter. They are countering the progress the Sahel region is making. I believe, and it is the opinion of SASCAN, that with the creation of a regional court will, first of all, deter any attempt to violate the rights of people with impunity. What is human rights violations? When you deprive the people from taking part in the democratic process of your country, when the people are deprived of their economic freedom, when the living standard of the people is not improved, when the social structures of the nation are collapsing, these are human rights abuses. So I believe the court is ready, and they created it to address all these issues. And it will also deter any attempt by foreign militia group or terrorist group to infiltrate into the African continent, because everybody will be aware that the human rights of each African concerns all of Africa. So this is what we be, and we support the move. Is a move in the right direction.
Mm, but we're supporting the move. I think it's wise to also be honest about some of the challenges that the Sahel region faces. And it's very, very serious. This serious challenges. You have terrorism, you have organized crime. We've seen numerous coups, within the Sahel region itself, which have come with human rights abuses. Do you think a regional court in the Sahel region, outside of global oversight, has and would have the capacity and independence to handle such complex cases?
Okay, thank you. When decisions are made in the ICC, African leaders are not consulted. If, for instance, today the president of America decides to invade any country, nobody can stop the US from going ahead with its plan. But with a structure like a regional justice system at the Sahel level, we believe that all these issues of terrorism will be reduced. All issues of this transnational organized crime will be reduced, and other things that stop the progress and peace of a nation. So we believe that all those things, it is not good for the Sahel to have its own court system. They are the adversaries to the African people. They are not good for African people. They are not good for this continent. They are not good for the peace and stability of Africa. Look what happened here, for instance, after the genocide in Libya. Who is at the ICC today? No one. Nobody. Look what's happened in Congo. Look what happened in the Rwanda. Who is at the ICC today? Nobody. But yet, we've seen those people who are championing the ICC issue, committing atrocities, genocide in other parts of the world, with ICC taking no action, but only focusing on how to humiliate our African leaders, how to humiliate activists in Africa. In law, when you talk of democracy or law, we mean justice. And what is justice? Fair play. But Africa is not given a chance to contribute to the international scene issues. So Africa is being left behind today. So when the AES leaders decided to create this regional court, I think it is in the interest of the African people. That is what they believe, and that is why they have decided that it's good for their people, it's good for their region, it's good for their country, and it's good for the people of Africa. Mind you, the AES leaders are not only fighting for their countries, they are fighting for the entire continent and for Africans in diaspora. There are a lot of crimes being committed against Africans in the diaspora. Who is in the ICC today? Nobody. The Prime Minister of Israel recently threatened to attack Africa. Someone they have already declared wanted at the ICC. But yet the man is moving from here and there, attending conferences, attending meetings at the White House, and even continuing to commit atrocities, genocide in Palestine and other countries. Just recently again, within 3 days, the same man attacked 6 countries, including Tunisia, Africa here. And who is going to defend Africa? So the court will now stand to defend Africa, to reject all this genocide, to reject all this terrorism, and make the African people understand that justice for the people of America is good for the people of Africa as well. Justice for the people of Europe is good for the people of Africa. But you can make decisions where Africans are not represented. This is not justice.
You're touching on my next point. Sorry to interject there. You touching on my next point, the lack of representation in these global structures when it comes to the African continent. But shouldn't that be the goal? Shouldn't the goal of African leaders to try and enforce influence, to try and force representation in these already existing structures so that they work for African people and African leaders to be treated as equals to everyone else and to be held at the same standard instead of isolating ourselves as a continent? How do you respond to that? The fact that maybe we should doing a bit more work when it comes to being a bit more vocal in how the ICC or the UN is treating African leaders and Africans in general. Africa should be more vocal and more involved when it comes to making sure that European leaders are taken to account for their transgressions and for their human rights transgressions. For instance, South African, the ICJ case that they presented against Benjamin Netanyahu and the state of Israel, instead of isolating ourselves, because Africa is still a developing continent, still very, very young continent, still reeling from the effects of colonial times. Isn't it a bit premature to start isolating ourselves from the global village, so to say?
Yeah, this is not a matter of isolating from the global village. No, it's a matter of protecting and defending sovereignty, national sovereignty. Let me go back to history. For over 400 years of slavery, over 100 million Africans were killed. Who is ready to pay reparation? But they told us that during the Second World War, that 6 million Jews were killed, and until today, Germany is still paying compensation for the crimes committed against the Jews in Europe. For over centuries of colonialism in Africa, how many people have been killed in Africa during the time of colonialism? Nobody knows. Nobody asks. How the resources? Nobody knows the accountability. Nobody's accountable for what they have stashed away from the continent. Do you want us to still stay in that perpetual living that Africa should not decide its own to drive its own future? No. Japan does not speak English, but they are developing today. Why? Because they think their own sovereignty. China as well. In the 70s, where was China? And where is China today? So we have to start from somewhere to reach somewhere. It's what the AES is doing. You cannot talk of democracy without seeking justice for your people. Is it fair that multinationals operating in Africa are taking away the resources of the African people, while the people continue to be poor, to live in misery? This is not justice. So we want to stop all this thing.
No, most
Now,
definitely.
I'm going again to the issue of Libya. They've killed more than 1 million people during the genocide campaign, including the brutal murder of Colonel Muammar Gaddafi. When Gaddafi was in Libya, and today Libya, what would you say? Look at what's happening in other parts of the world. So we need a system that considers Africa as equal partners, as members of the decision-making process in that international system. Look at the United Nations Security Council system. It's undemocratic, it's unfair, it's unjust. Africa has no permanent representation in the UN Security Council. And this is the council that decide the future of this world. And when you decide the future of this world without Africa, then you are not talking about the world. You are only talking about white people. The justice system in the United Nations is for the white and not for black people. So if we as black people have decided today to shape, to design our own future, then that is what we believe and we pursue it. And that is exactly what the AES is trying to tell us in Africa. It's trying to tell the world that gone are those days of slavery, gone are the days of colonialism, and now we do not want what is cooking on the continent, which is new colonialism. They say colonialism is gone, but they left behind some stages, and these are the stages that are tightening us today in chains. Yes, France can come and invade Africa. France can come and kill our African leaders. Nobody talks in the international community. Even the media cannot talk. But when something happened to just one politician in Europe, the whole world shakes. The whole world shakes. So what is Africa doing in this international instrument where we are not recognized? They only recognize it because you have to pay taxes in Europe to keep your offices there, members of the United Nations. Africa has 54 foreign missions in New York, paying taxes in New York City. So this is unjust. And Africa has not a single permanent representation in the UN Security Council. This is very unjust. So we need to carve our own system We need to be able to defend our sovereignty. We need to be able to improve the living standards of the African people. We need to be able to promote and defend the human rights and freedoms of the African people. But no one in the international community wants to see this thing happen in Africa, because when these things happen in Africa, then the economic interest is shaken. This is the whole game. Everything about the international community in Africa is about money. It's about snatching our resources away, then leaving us in poverty. Then they will go and make the same United Nations will go and make reports. Mali is the poorest country in the world. Niger is the poorest country in the world. Burkina Faso is the poorest country in the world. Okay, yes, we have accepted we are poor, but now leave us to cover our own future. That's what is happening in the areas. Yes, and most Africans, from what we are gathering from intelligence and other information sources, they are supporting this idea. These are revolutionary ideas. These are ideas we believe will take Africa to another level. During the time of apartheid, what did these people do? Instead of supporting to fight apartheid, they were supporting the apartheid enclave against blacks. We saw it in Africa.
All right, Brother Alimamy, thank you so much for joining us. Unfortunately,
who has come out to the world to challenge the assassination of African people? Nobody. They killed some of Sankara. Who has come out to speak up? They killed Amika Kava. They killed Patrick Lumumba. They killed Stephen Okurifio. Where is the justice system? Thank you, my brother.
No, thank you so much. Unfortunately, we have run out of time. I would have liked to continue a bit further with our conversation, but we hope to catch up with you again in the not so distant future. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, you're always welcome. Thank you very much, my brother, for taking your time to talk about the Sahel region. Thank you. God bless.
Very, very important developments out in the Sahel region. And there is Alimamy Bakarr Sankoh coming to us live from Freetown out in Sierra Leone. He's an international executive director of the Hugo Chavez International Foundation for Peace, Friendship and Solidarity. And yeah, giving us insight into the growing pushback against the ICC in Africa. ICC, I don't think they've covered themselves in glory in the last few years, especially looking at how they've dealt with African leaders, how they've dealt with leaders in the West, how they've dealt with this ongoing genocide against the people of Palestine. And now Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger are betting on a new Sahelian court to deliver justice on their own terms. But as always, the world will be watching closely to see if this becomes a model for true regional accountability or a retreat from global oversight. And I think for me, that's where the concern is, where you isolating yourself from the rest of the world because you know what you want to do. Because let's not kid ourselves here. This is still the African continent. The Sahel region in itself, I don't know how many coups that region has experienced in just the last 5 years. You know, some of the leaders that you see right now parading as, you know, a new generation of African leaders, Adama Traore, he's a cause of a coup. So that's, I think, should be wary. I think as Africans, so many leaders have come and gone, and they've positioned themselves to be the saviors of the African continent, to be a new cut from a different cloth kind of leader. But the results have always looked the same. So I think we must take things with a bit of caution, a pinch of salt, as they always say. Now we watch and we wait. And I think most importantly, the world in itself will be waiting and watching closely to see if this indeed becomes a model for true regional accountability, where Africa presents solutions for African problems, or could it be another retreat from global oversight? That's been our hashtag Africa Focus feature on News and Views this morning. Still ahead, we're heading over to Durban, where a bold new youth platform has just been launched and is giving the next generation a voice in shaping South Africa's future. More on that after this short break.